as Andy says, I spend a lot of my time recording EEGs, brainwave activity, in patients over at the RVI. And what I want to do today is to attempt something that has never been tried before. I'll repeat that. This has never been tried before. Certainly not in this lecture theatre, and definitely not on a Thursday. What we will attempt to do is to record the brainwave activity of one of you in the audience. We're going to attempt to record Kieran's brainwave activity. That's a worry. So, a lot of this is squiggles, but it does make sense. This truly is Kieran's brainwave activity. So it doesn't project particularly well, but that's not a flat line. There is actually oscillatory activity in there. And what I'd like to do now, again, this may or may not work. Can you just close your eyes for me? Okay. Can I convince you that there's more oscillatory activity up here? Open your eyes again. Can I convince you that that has disappeared? At least one person's got it. I'm convinced. Anybody else convinced? Okay. Try it again. Just close your eyes. Yeah? That is the alpha rhythm. That truly is brainwave activity, recorded live. So, huge round of applause for Kieran.
In the next section, Roger describes some clinical cases, illustrating how useful EEGs can be to doctors.
This is a real EEG from a patient who was investigated because they were having episodes of a horrible taste in their mouth. They would blank out for a bit, they would fumble a bit, and eventually, in some cases, they'd go on into a very obvious seizure. And this patient was in for 5 days. We call that video telemetry. So we're recording their EEG, we're videoing them for 5 whole days to try and capture a number of events. Can you see this very, very rhythmical sawtooth activity building up and just going on and on and on and on and on? But what I'd like to also note is this part of the brain looks pretty normal. So actually, it's just the right side of the brain that's having a seizure, whereas the left side is still functioning remarkably normally. This is a 14-year-old who was referred up because she was doing very badly at school. Teachers thought she was daydreaming, wasn't paying attention. Performance in the classroom was going down and down. And can you see this really, really obvious abnormality? If you look very carefully, there's this spike, and if you look in every single lead, it fires off essentially instantaneously. Now, they don't last very long, so here the seizure is finished, usually about 5 or 6 seconds. But during that, it's not particularly surprising, the brain effectively shuts down for a couple of seconds. So this is what we would call an absence seizure. This is a 12-year-old boy who was having blank spells at school, similar to the previous one, but also was having episodes of collapse. And that's a bit more of a worry. So losing consciousness, falling to the floor. Now, there are some spiky bits on the EEG, and actually this boy does indeed have epilepsy. But in this case, it's not his epilepsy that's causing the collapses. Do you remember on those first tracings I was showing you the heart rate recording, so the ECG? Each one of these little red spikes is a heartbeat. The EEG is reasonably normal at this stage. But for a 12-year-old boy, this heart rate is getting a little bit slow. And it's getting a little bit slower. And it's getting a little bit slower again. And then, that's not good. So the ECG has gone completely flat. The heart has stopped. The EEG, the brainwaves recording, has started to go very, very slow because you need your heart to keep your brain working. He's now making a few jerks. He's completely unconscious, is slumped into the chair, and here his EEG is completely flat. That's not good. Thankfully, about here, and that's about 18 seconds later, his heart has restarted. His EEG is still completely flat, and he's completely unconscious. Now that a little bit of blood is getting back to his brain, the brain has started working again, but very, very slow. He has a couple more jerks as he comes around, which look very, very like an epileptic seizure. So you can see why this was thought to be all epilepsy. Thankfully, his heart rate is coming back up towards normal. His EEG is getting back to normal. Pretty much back to normal now. Opens his eyes and says, I feel all right now. And I can tell you, as the patient's heart rate's coming up like that, the technician's heart rate is coming down like that back to normal. So, looks very pale. That's the technician. so this is not a nice thing to happen. Thankfully, it doesn't happen very, very, very often. But this is a boy who does have epilepsy. But the point I'm making is that there are other causes of collapse, and even in patients with epilepsy, you cannot assume that all of their events are from their epilepsy directly, and you've got to think of other causes. In this case, this was just the heart stopping. Thankfully, it's never happened again in this boy, and he's doing very, very well.
We hope you have enjoyed watching our film and that it might inspire you to join us in the fight to cure epilepsy.